Sessions, which is, you know, the Almanac Singers, you might as well be, right? And on Wrecking Ball, I mean, you know, Land, you know, Hope and Glory, I mean, there's a lot of Guthrie in there, it seems to me. I hear a lot of Guthrie in that. So what is that about? I mean, he's not just becoming the world's greatest rock star, he's becoming the real successor, which Dylan abjured. Dylan said, I don't want to be that. If there is a successor to Woody Guthrie, it's Bruce Springsteen, I think. Through rock and roll, and consciously so, I suspect.
Mm-hmm.
So, am I right?
Yeah, you know, the amazing thing about Wrecking Ball is that, and one of the things I think has been overlooked about Bruce over the years is what a successful synthesis of American styles he is. Because when you listen to Wrecking Ball, the striking thing to me, I mean, and I first heard it before he was done mixing it in his studio, and the thing that struck me then, other than the fact that I was relieved that I liked it a lot better than I liked working on The Dream, which I didn't like very much at all, was the fact that you had these, you know, clearly he had absorbed a lot of Irish folk culture, and there was this kind of Celtic punk thing happening, which was also somehow was merged with some sort of hip-hop beats, which was also merged with that Woody Guthrie sort of front porch strumming, which also came with, you know, hard electric guitars and, you know, fiddles and banjos and, you know, Michelle Moore rapping in that one song. And it's kind of like, you know, this is magical stuff. This is, again, it's Brian Wilson. If you listen to Brian Wilson, you listen to Surfin' USA, which is a Chuck Berry song that he rewrote with 4 freshman harmonies and surfing guitar, and, you know, it's all these different things. Springsteen is doing that from album to album to album, but it came in a real way in full fruition here, which in a sense, musically takes him a little away from Woody Guthrie. But in terms of the spirit of it, the spirit of, you know, the great sort of, you know, stew of American culture, the idea that this is a vessel that everyone feeds into, that creates a, you know, sort of a populist community of different people whose contributions equal something greater than the parts. That's what that record is. That's the power in that record. And there's the great gospel stuff. The other thing that I think is interesting, if you go back to 1971, and again, Vinny can testify to this, that when he started the Bruce Springsteen band, he broke up Steel Mill, which is a hugely successful rock and roll jam band in the early 70s around New Jersey. And, you know, Bill Graham wanted to sign them. You know, they were drawing thousands of people up and down the Atlantic seaboard. Broke him up. He wanted to get into R&B, big band type stuff, like Van Morrison and Joe Cocker, and, you know, Ike and Tina Turner and that kind of thing. So he puts together this huge rock and roll orchestra with, like, they got the rhythm section, they got 2 lead guitar players, they got horns, they got singers, they got organ and piano, they got this whole thing going on, but nobody can really, you know, what they made was beautiful, but nobody could really grok it in New Jersey in 1971. So they worked really hard, they didn't get anywhere, they went backwards from where they'd been a year or 2 earlier, gave it up. What you're seeing now in the 14, 17-member Bruce Springsteen band is a big band, 3 lead guitar players, singers, horn players. It's the Bruce Springsteen band from 1971. It's that dream 40 years later. And again, it all comes down to the same thing, synthesis, drawing together all these different cultural influences. The R&B, you could, you know, growing up in Freehold, you could pull in the Philadelphia stations as well as you could pull in New York stations. It's infinite, you know, it's the Orlons as well, as much as it's Frankie Valli.